your presentation. I'm wondering if,
their forested land.
State the name you'd like to be called by, and will you take your time? I'll go through my spiel.
Really? Let's get comfortable here. Please, I don't fall on my behind.
Yeah, if you state your name you want to be referred to as, indicate any organization you may be representing. Following that, there'll be a 5-minute opportunity for presentation, followed by 5 minutes of questions from committee members. So go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Bernadette Hamilton-Reid. I am representing I'm the Executive Director for the African Nova Scotian Decade for People of African Descent Coalition.
Go ahead, 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Armstrong and honorable members of the Legislative Assembly. Again, my name is Bernadette Hamilton-Reid, and my pronouns are she, her. I'm an 8th-generation African Nova Scotian, hailing from the beautiful nation of Beachville. I want to acknowledge that I live, work, and play on the stolen and unceded lands of the Mi'kmaq people. I also want to acknowledge the histories, contributions, and legacies of the African Nova Scotian people and communities who have been here for over 400 years. I stand before you as the Executive Director of the African Nova Scotian Decade for People of African Descent Coalition, known as DPAD, and we are addressing Bill 198. But more than that, I stand before you as a voice of 1,000+, a voice carrying the lived realities, the concerns, and the hopes of African Nova Scotian communities. This province represents 3%, we represent 3% of this province, over 28,000 people. This is not a new community. We are a foundational community, communities that have given so much to Nova Scotia and yet too often have received too little in return. We gather here today to speak of budgets, of numbers on paper, of allocations, of reductions, but let us be clear. Budgets are not just financial documents. They are moral documents. They are statements of priority. They reveal who is valued and who is left behind. And today, I must say with clarity and conviction, these proposed cuts are not neutral. They are not felt equally. They are failing hardest on those who already carry the heaviest burdens. African Nova Scotians continue to face the burden and face the deep persistence of inequities. Black child poverty in Nova Scotia is 27.6%, significantly higher than the national average. In some of our historic 52 Black communities, that number rises to over 35%. These are not small gaps. These are generational divides. We face barriers to stable employment and economic mobility. We experience disparities in health, income, and in opportunity. These are not new realities. They are the result of generations of systemic inequity. And yet, despite this, the very programs designed to address these gaps, to create opportunity, to support youth, to strengthen families are now being reduced. When you cut community programs, you are not trimming access. You are removing lifelines. You are removing safe spaces for our youth. You are weakening mentorship networks. You are increasing the likelihood that young people fall through the cracks. And when young people fall through the cracks, we all pay the price, socially, economically, and morally. When you reduce support for education, you are not saving money, you are postponing potential. Among African Nova Scotian students in grade 6, only 61% meet expectations in reading, 49% in writing, and just 53% in mathematics. This is not about ability, it is about access, support, and systemic barriers. And let us remember, an education gap becomes an income gap tomorrow. An income gap becomes a health gap, and those gaps ripple across generations. When you cut economic development supports, you are not balancing a budget, you are stalling progress. African Nova Scotian entrepreneurs and small business owners already face barriers to capital and opportunity. The programs that support them are not luxuries. They are necessary pathways to economic inclusion, job creation, and community stability. And when we speak of stability, we must speak of housing. 13.2% of African Nova Scotians live in core housing need, nearly double the provincial average of 7.3%. A home should be a foundation, but for too many, it is a daily struggle. And when access to culturally competent healthcare is limited, people do not simply adjust, they suffer in silence. They delay in seeking care. They disengage from systems that never were designed with them in mind. This is not just economic, this is human. Honorable members, we must ask ourselves, what kind of province are we building? Are we building one where equity is spoken of in words, but abandoned in action? Or are we building one where every community is given a fair and genuine opportunity to thrive? Because the truth is this, when you underinvest in African Nova Scotian communities, you are not only harming those communities, you are weakening the future of Nova Scotia itself.
You have about a minute left.
We stand before you not only to raise concerns, but to call for action. We urge you to reconsider and reverse cuts that disproportionately impact African Nova Scotian communities. Engage directly with our communities before finalizing decisions. We ask Premier Houston and Minister Twala Gross, Minister of African Nova Scotia Affairs, to consult with us. Protect and invest in education, community programs, economic development, and culturally competent health care. Because equity is not accidental. It's intentional, it's deliberate, and it requires courage. Let me close with this. African Nova Scotians are not asking for special treatment. We are asking for fairness, recognition, and investment in both our history and our contributions. We are simply asking not to be left behind. Because when one community is held back, the whole province is held back. But when we rise, we are supported, invested in, Empower Nova Scotia, all rises. Thank you for your time, your attention, and responsibility to serve all people of this province. And I leave you with an African proverb. Until the lion tells the story, the tale of the hunt will always glorify the hunter. We must tell our story. Ashe. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. We'll now open the floor up to questions from committee members. Just a reminder, please try to frame your questions so it's linked to the FMA. MLA Wozni.
Thank you, Ms. Reid, and thank you for your leadership within community through your role with the African Nova Scotian Decade for People of African Descent Coalition. You brought an important lens to our consideration of the Financial Measures Act. It's clear to me that thinking about this bill and its relationship to numbers of strictly of a financial sort leave us short in our perspective of whether this is what's right for Nova Scotia. I'm wondering if there are any particular components of the Financial Measures Act that through an equity lens, particularly springing forth from a first voice perspective of the African Nova Scotian community as a founding people of this province, are there specific components of this legislation that you believe need a rework or a redo through an African Nova Scotian lens?
Thank you, MLA Wozni. And we'll, Mrs. Hamilton-Reid, go ahead.
Thank you, MLA Wozni. The whole document, we're embedded in the whole document. Every department, but specifically as the Director of African Nova Scotian Affairs, of DPAD, I'll call it DPAD, we were not consulted, and in section, reference 73 and 94, our funding has been cut, but I did not receive any notification as to how I'm being defunded. So that's one thing. The African Nova Scotia Services Division on page 7.1, the learning opportunities. Also on page 7.3, the regional educational officers. Under advanced education, when it talks about Aboriginal programming and accessibility through the Cape Breton University, also promoting leadership and health for African Nova Scotians at Dow. Under community cultures, tourism, and heritage, community program, African Heritage Month proclamation. Reference 10 under advanced education, and it goes on and on and on over the 200 recommendations. If I were able to get a hard copy, which I've been trying to get for the last 2 weeks, of your document, I've been trying to process this online, and every line I can look at, our community has been disenfranchised and has been left out. We don't know how many FTEs, full-time equivalencies, have been lost through jobs. We have heard through our comments that people have lost their jobs because of some of the funding that has taken part in other departments. I think we have over 27 business units within the province, or more than that. In every department, there is somewhere there is African Nova Scotians being gentrified through that and being disengaged.
Thank you. MLA Rankin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for being here today. You were in the House a lot, almost every day, if not every day, over the last little while. So really value your advocacy in this space, and I want to ask what the process was around changes that were made after the budget was tabled. So no changes to the FMA since it's been introduced, but there were changes to the budget. And I just wonder, like, if your organization has been contacted in any way, because there were changes specific to scholarships around African Nova Scotians, but there still is a whole bunch of other things. So just wondering, like, how does that dialogue work with DPAD and the government? And has there been change over the last years or months? Because I know for a fact there was a lot of dialogue with DPAD and organizations that support African Nova Scotians, and really proud to represent Beachville. And I know your family history well, as the Hamiltons have go way back to the start of Beachville with land grants being given to your ancestors. So I appreciate the passion and the knowledge that you have in this space. So just want to give you an opportunity to talk about how DPAD interacts with government, and has that changed over the last number of years or months?
I'm going to allow the question, but we're really here for the Bill 198, the Financial Measures Act. But if you keep it broad and what your operation actually does, I'll accept it. So you've got about a minute left. You go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Rankin, for your honorable Rankin, for your question. And yes, I must say, commend you when your government was in place. DPAD really came into place during your government. And during that time, we were a very viable part of the province, and we had funding that was ongoing. Once the Professor Conservative came in, our funding got demoted. We no longer became a line item. I had to fight, honestly fight, write programs after programs to get funding to support our organization. That is still going on to this day. I just received funding about a month or so ago concerning that. But the main thing is that we have not been able to have meetings with the Premier, the caucus, or the Minister of African Nova Scotian Affairs when we have asked for meetings. We have had meetings with the NDP caucus, and the Liberal caucus, and the Independents. Unfortunately, we have not been able to infiltrate those meetings. We will continue to try to reach out to the Premier and the Minister of African Nova Scotian Affairs, because they need to hear our voice and they need to hear from community, especially on this. Even though they told us what they gave back, it's still not clear as to how much was given back, and not 100% was given back. Although they say 100%, when you look at the fine lines of this budget, many areas of the scholarships and many areas of our bus passes and certain things have not been fulfilled and have not been given back. So when you give a broad statement that we gave all the funding back, not all the funding has been back. And we did challenge Minister Gross when she said, I've done my part. Well, we need to do better. We need to find out, you need to come to community, they need to speak to us and find out what we need to make sure that all of our funds and all of our supports are back in place. We need this to survive. We need this for the next generation. We need this for this generation. There are many students coming to us. They don't know how they're going to fund their school for September. They're really concerned.
Thank you for your presentation today. The time for questions has expired.